Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lee. I'm part of a father and son duo who runs this channel. And if you haven't been here before, we are based here in Shenzhen, China, and we generally make videos about our life here in China. We cover opinion, we cover tech, we cover daily life, and we cover food, all sorts of different things. So go ahead and check out some of our other videos if it's your first time here. Now, about 2 weeks ago, it was on the 9th of January actually, we were featured in an article in the Times of London newspaper, both in the newspaper and the online version. And that article accused us of being paid by and working for the Chinese government to make positive videos about China. That's just absolutely ridiculous. It's just completely untrue. Subsequently to that, we were invited by Liu Xin onto The Point, which is a CGTN production here in China. Now, many of you may not have seen that broadcast. So what we've decided to do, we've decided to put it on the channel so you can all have a chance to see it. And it's where I and Ollie, we joined two other YouTubers who were also in the article, Matt Gallup from the JO Nation and Jason Lightfoot from Living in China, and we discussed the article together with Liu Xin. So I'm going to roll the article, the production now. Enjoy, and any comments you have, I'm sure you'll leave them in the comment section down below. So for now, take care.
Hello and welcome to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point. I'm Liu Xin. In this series, I dissect stories that are making headlines around the world and talk to my guests to compensate for the missing pieces of the puzzle. So join me in real time by sending us your comments or questions via the CGTN page on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Weibo. If you're watching us live on the CGTN application, email me at thepointwithlx@cgtn.com. Let me know what you think. We start our live streaming every Friday at 11 a.m. Beijing time, so do get in touch and we just might read out your comments. Now this week we're going to look at a peculiar story that surfaced in a prominent British newspaper, The Times. It's a one-off, but it's worth mentioning because it captures the essence, I believe, of so much that's perplexing about reports on China. Now, the article was published both in print and online on January the 9th, entitled "Beijing Funds British YouTubers to Further Its Propaganda War." The online version says the Chinese government is funding British YouTube stars to produce pro-China propaganda videos, an investigation by The Times can reveal. So why the suspicion to start with? Well, the article finds the views of these YouTubers in sync with the Chinese government's, and the comments under these videos are largely supportive too. The article lists some examples of those videos posted by British people living in China, such as Lee Barrett and his son Ollie, who live in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen. The article devotes a good part in the beginning to what the duo said on issues such as Hong Kong and Xinjiang, followed by Western critics who argue against their position, thus supporting the claim that these videos are pro-China propaganda. One example is Hong Kong. Let's listen to what Ollie said.
Police brutality. So this is another thing that was pushed in the US media and, you know, the media of the Five Eyes nations, that the Hong Kong police during the protests over the last year have been so brutal towards its citizens. They've used unnecessary force against their citizens, which is just blatantly not true.
The article then quotes Amnesty International to rebuke his view, citing evidence of detained Hong Kong protesters receiving ill treatment amounting to torture. Well, I don't want to go into the argument about alleged police brutality in Hong Kong, but here is the point. The Barretts have obviously different opinions on some controversial issues than the mainstream view in the UK, and these views appear to coincide with those of the Chinese government. But does that mean they're necessarily pushing pro-China propaganda? When they're showing themselves eating Chinese noodles, for instance, is that also pro-China propaganda? The other big question is, where does the allegation come from that these YouTubers are funded by the Chinese government? The article says, after investigation, that some of their videos were funded by China Radio International, a media organization that has been exposed as the secret owner of an international network of propaganda radio stations. Now, no evidence is presented to back that claim about secret ownership, but that aside, the YouTubers did participate in an organized activity to the northwestern Chinese city of Xi'an. They then produced content about the trip to post on their respective channels. The Barretts basically documented the trip, their arrival at the hotel, the meetings they had, the places they went, the people they saw. In the relevant video, Oli clearly explains why they were there.
So, just to explain to you what's going on here, so basically China Radio International have organised a meet-up with a bunch of different YouTubers, and that's why everybody's in the same place right now. So they've brought us all to Xi'an and Shanxi to show us around and do some cool things here.
So one such trip was funded by the Chinese official media, but does that mean the videos and the views in these videos are funded by Beijing? Does that mean that these YouTubers are funded by Beijing in general, as one can extrapolate from the title in the print version of the Times? We'll get to that very important distinction later. Now, the article also says critics have claimed that pro-China YouTubers are benefiting from ad revenues, in part driven by an alleged Chinese Communist Party network of bots that promote videos supporting the state. Now, a bot is a software application that runs automated tasks over the internet. But who are these critics, first of all, and how do they know bots are behind the channel's booming success? And where is the evidence? The article fails to enlighten us. The article goes on to point out that the Barretts are part of a growing number of foreigners who live in China, making videos endorsing the government and criticizing the West. The paper mentions a few others, including another Brit by the name of Jason Lightfoot, who has been living in China for 9 years in southwest China's Guizhou province. As if to support their argument, the article cites the fact that their videos have been retweeted by Chinese officials. Obviously, one has little control as to what people do with your content. What about those who use their content to attack or criticize them, like the Times reporters? It's funny, the article contradicts itself as well. It says, in a candid video about the visit that was subsequently removed, Li admitted that a trip to a mountain was cancelled so they could witness propaganda regarding the area's prosperity. He said it wasn't until the second day they started talking about cutting the trip short by a day, and there was no real reason given for that. A fellow YouTuber, Jiao Nation, said they had to fit in more propaganda. If these YouTubers are really funded by Beijing to spread propaganda, why would they say it in their videos? I don't know the reason, however, why Li's video was allegedly removed. Now, the article goes on to quote people who study China and its digital communication to make the case that China is using these people to make itself look legitimate at home and abroad, and they can't possibly say anything bad about China because they will be in trouble. What a clean sweep. So long as you live in China and say something good about it, you must not be telling the truth. After making these claims, the article finishes by saying the Barretts, Mr. Lightfoot, China Radio International, and the Chinese embassy did not respond to requests for comment. So Jason and Barrett's, actually Jiao Nation as well, have since made videos to refute the claims made in the paper. Here are a few clips of what they had to say.
We are sponsored for the trip, but the content of our channel is completely independent of that trip. We choose what content we will produce, we decide what we're going to say in that content, and we decide what we're going to publish on our channel. Now that is completely different from a sponsored video. Now we have done sponsored videos here in China, but those sponsored videos here in China are generally for products or manufacturers or brands.
The story is mostly it's about Barrett and their channel, but I know for a fact that Barrett, Lee and only Barrett, are not funded by the Chinese government. You know, they're just like me. They're showing the truth of China. And I think it's the fact that the Times, you know, they just can't handle the truth. They can't handle it, really.
We will talk to all of the four gentlemen mentioned in the article to share their side of the story. Now, critics might use this as one more evidence that they are cronies of Chinese propaganda. I just believe they deserve a voice in a story with a strong accusation related to them, to the media, and to China. We also reached out to the two writers of the article repeatedly as early as we could. No reply so far. So what exactly do the YouTubers have to say about these charges? Stay with us. We'll continue right after this short break.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Making sense of the overwhelming wave of information means cutting through the noise to shine a light on the heart of the story and making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point. Welcome back to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Liu Xin. As I mentioned, we have all the four gentlemen mentioned in the Times article, which is accusing them of being funded by Beijing to push pro-China propaganda. Who are they? Let me introduce them. Lee and Ollie Barrett, Jason Lightfoot, and Matt Gallard. Gentlemen, welcome to Headline Buster. Lee, let me go to you first. You said some of the quotes in your video were taken out of context by the Times article. Would you elaborate on that? What do you mean, for instance?
Yeah, so a number of months ago, probably 10 or 12 months ago, I spoke about the sort of accusations in Xinjiang about how China was dealing with terrorism. And in my opinion, I think China is dealing with it in a different way to the West dealt with it. And I was simply outlining those differences. But the quote in the Times was that I supported these sort of re-education camps. I was actually pointing out that I thought it was a more humane way of dealing with it than actually just killing people.
Well, we are not here today to discuss these issues, as I said earlier in the monologue, right? We don't have the time to go into the details. But the fact,
Sure.
I think the main accusation against you, all of you, is that you were somehow funded, or your video were funded by Beijing, as the print version of the Times paper says. Actually, it implies that not only one particular video was funded by Beijing, but you in general, your work is in general funded by Beijing to push out its propaganda. So Li and later on Jiayou Nation, Matt as well. I want you to help us understand, how do you make of the distinction between a sponsored or funded trip where you are invited to make content versus funded content or even funded views by someone? Li first.
So I would distinguish it between that. If you're paid to say certain things, if your videos are examined and edited by a third party before they are released, I would suggest that was actually them funding the video. But in our case, we are not have any editorial sort of direction. We're just given, you know, funds to go on that trip. They maybe pay for a hotel, pay for transport, but in no way are we told what to say. In no way does that funding of those hotels or travel influence what we say in our videos. You know, my videos are what I think. It's nothing to do with anything. I will still retain the editorial and the view in that video, which is my own.
Matt, what is your reaction?
I have over 1,400 videos on my YouTube channel, and each one of them is about my life in the world, not only in China. When that article came out, it insinuated that China was funding and influencing all of my content, and I think that really it casts aspersions on everything that I've ever produced. When I went out to Shanxi, I was creating videos based on my own perception of the world that they were introducing to me, but they certainly weren't influencing me into what to say and how to say it. And the article really kind of laid it on thick, insinuating that we were supposed to say certain things certain ways, and that just wasn't the case.
Exactly. How did they do it? I mean, they funded this trip. You were invited, you were taken to places, you were meeting people, and you were filming stuff. But after that, what you decided to put out on your channel, did they have any say? Did they ask you questions? Did they say, don't put this out, take that down? Did any of that happen, Matt?
Certainly not. As a matter of fact, we would take all of our content home. Some of the stuff was live streamed, so we were doing it at certain places and talking about topics that weren't even related to the trip at all in many cases. We were just having fun as fellow YouTubers and content creators making interesting videos. All we're trying to do is trying to show the world our little slice of the world. And so that's what we do. And that's kind of why we were invited out, because they knew that well, I'm a very optimistic person. So they thought, well, if Matt comes with us, he's going to be able to shed light on and the things that we were visiting were not controversial in any way. That's the other thing, that there's this nefarious a subplot where we are being influenced to cover up some sort of craziness with regards to bad things that are happening in China. In many cases, it was just crops being grown here at a pretty great rate and people innovating and doing certain good things with China. And I'm all for presenting the world in a pretty positive light. So that's what I did.
Ollie, I showed a clip about you introducing the purpose of the trip to the viewers of the audience, and you were also accused of doing a farcical vegetable dance by the Times article. Help us understand a little bit why, first of all, you felt it was necessary to explain the trip in front of the camera, and what about the farcical vegetable dance?
Well, firstly, I think it's just we've got nothing to hide. So we will say that we are, with CRI, going on this trip. And I think if that was in any other country, that wouldn't be an issue at all. No one would think twice about it. But because it's in China, most people who don't understand much about China will assume it's got some underlying evil motive behind it. As for the farcical dance, that was actually something very spontaneous. We were going to see the greenhouses and the vegetables. And when we got off the bus to walk to that area, we came across this gentleman who he said, oh, look, I'm sort of live streaming. And we were very surprised to see it was a middle-aged gentleman and he had a big live streaming setup. So we got involved and we were having some fun and we were learning about what he was doing to sort of make the area more prosperous. And yeah, of course, that got taken out of context, and that's not a surprise at all. But that was what it was.
So, Jason, let me also ask you this question. You were also on that trip, and did anybody tell you what to say? And when it comes to being funded by the Chinese government, who exactly funds you? if it is not the Chinese government, you retweeted, you rebuked, saying it's Jason's purse, which is going a bit low these days. But how do you support? Yeah, how do you fund your videos? How do you fund your life in general?
Yeah, so every single one of my videos is funded by me. Just like I said in the video, it's funded by Jason's back pocket fund, which is indeed running quite low at the moment. There's no company, no country that has ever funded any single one of my videos. And you know, it's crazy to think that they would accuse my channel of being funded by the Chinese government, because literally, in most of my videos, I'm just showing my everyday life. I mean, in my last video, I literally was just hanging around the Burger King. So do you think that the Chinese government would fund me to show an American company such as Burger King? You know, it's just crazy. It's just my everyday life, really.
But people are saying, but you have titles such as China is doing a great job, or the world is hiding China's success, or surveillance camera is good, you know, and even me, you know, sometimes when I look at these titles, I'm like, wow, that is, you know, quite bold. Why do you go around and making these very bold statements about China? Are you not concerned that you might, you know, exaggerate a little bit?
You know, really, I just try to show the truth here in China. I don't try to make anything up. I just want to show the everyday life, my life here in China. And I feel that my channel is quite unique because I show it from a different perspective, rather than showing the big cities such as Shanghai or Beijing, Guangzhou. I show it from a county level perspective, such as a small city like Xinyi in Guizhou province, which is one of the poorest provinces in China when compared to other provinces. So I feel, in a way, my perspective is quite unique when compared to other channels.
Also, can I add, I think titles are designed to encourage people to view the video. So titles have to be somewhat outrageous. The content, once you get into the videos, is typically more laid out and constructed. But a lot of those kind of clickbaity titles you can find on our videos as much as you can find on relevant videos that are outside of our points of view. I think that's just how media is these days.
But there is the issue. I understand that, Jason, for instance, your YouTube has been restricted, right? The viewership has been limited because of maybe the misleading nature of the title. So, but that seems to be a different discussion, right? If you have a correct, objective title versus whether you are funded by Beijing to push some kind of a narrative. How do you look at that, Jason?
Yeah, I feel at the moment my channel has been restricted, and the reason that I gave was misleading titles. But for me, I don't feel that my titles are misleading because I'm showing you the streets. I'm live here on the ground of China, and I'm just showing my everyday life. There's no story. There's no fabrication of anything. I'm just showing. I'm literally showing you the streets of China, and you're seeing it on the videos that I post. The title completely relates to what you see in the videos. So I don't know where they got that accusation from.
Li and Ollie, you have both commented on controversial issues such as Hong Kong and Xinjiang. Who or how do you form your opinions about these issues? Are there any pressure from anybody telling you or exerting pressure on you on what you should say, what you shouldn't say? Li?
Absolutely not. I mean, these are my own opinions from what I see here and people who I speak to here. You know, I know Chinese people who are from Xinjiang. I know foreigners who've traveled in and around Xinjiang. I mean, we want to go to Xinjiang ourselves, but I just form those opinions from the news I gather from people I speak to in and around China being here.
Yeah, Ollie, what about you when you talked about
Yeah,
the Hong Kong issue?
Similar answer, actually. You know, we are in Shenzhen, which is right next to Hong Kong. So there was many people that have traveled there and back and sort of talked about it and talked about the situation. And we just form our opinions from our own chats with people, our own experiences here. And yeah, what we read online. But as we know, you have to read from many sources to sort of make up your own mind. But in no way will we put under any pressure from anyone external about those videos at all.
Matt, you say you're an optimistic person, but in China, for a foreigner, a Westerner these days in particular, life is not always rosy, right? Sometimes you can bump into problems and negative, maybe not so pleasant experiences. How do you decide your perspective? How do you decide which side you want to highlight?
Well, being optimistic doesn't mean hiding the negative. It means looking at the whole picture from a positive slant. I will go around and I have seen some elements of poverty and I've seen some, certain things that exist in all parts of the world. I show them. I allow the people in my videos to witness what I'm seeing, but I always kind of say, well, the reason that person might be afraid of me right now is because it's a pandemic and a lot of foreigners are, bringing the virus in certain places and airports and whatnot. And maybe, the poverty that we might be seeing today exists, but it's in a much better place than it was 5 or 10 years ago. When you add context to things, oftentimes you can turn a negative situation into a teaching situation and then convert those things into more relevant instead of just castigating or painting with a broad brush, adding some nuance to a topic and allowing yourself to see it from a better perspective is helpful.
Jason, you particularly come from a very positive perspective about China, praising China on many things. Are there no negative side of your life that you think worth talking about? How do you choose your perspective, your angle?
I believe that, China is not perfect. Every country has its positives and its negative. But for me, on my channel, I choose to concentrate rather on the positive side of things. It's not really good to get bogged down in the negative side of things. It's quite heavy, toxic to be consumed by hate. So I'd rather show and concentrate on the positive things, because every country has negatives, but you don't need to get bogged down and include that in your vlogs that you put on YouTube.
Why do you feel you have
the urge? If you don't mind,
urge?
I'd just like to add,
Yes.
Sorry, I'd just like to add to that. I think if any content creator in any country, like ourselves, we're likely to focus on the positive things. But I think people only have an issue with that when the content is made inside of China, because they think there's such evil underlying motive. So we must not be showing the negative sides because we're funded by the government. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. And of course, we on CGTN, being a media as well, we have a very important job to do as well. Many thanks to my 4 guests, Jason Lightfoot from Living in China, Matt Gallett from Jiayu Nation, Lee and Ollie Barrett from Barrett's. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. I'll see you next Friday at the same time.